It's a momentous occasion, and I'm excited about it. PFL Podcast Episode 3. Sean O'Connell, Yves Edwards, Squid, and we're all in the same place.
For the first time ever.
It feels great.
It's crazy.
It's so good to have you here, Sean.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Southern California, we got PFL 9 coming up, which means I'm fighting again in the PFL playoffs. Very excited about that. Before we get to anything that's coming up, though, please, Yves, can we talk about PFL 8? And what a phenomenal evening it was in Nolens.
In Nolens, wasn't it? It was a great evening. I mean, we saw the number 8 seed come all the way from the bottom of the bracket and just take control, and now he's got himself an opportunity to make $1 million.
He's actually going to join us on the podcast today. Really excited to talk to Josh Copeland. Of course, we're referring to Josh Copeland, the Cuddly Bear. Looking forward to that. Yeah, the Cinderella story and all that stuff. So at heavyweight, you got a little bit of everything, quite frankly, at PFL 8. At heavyweight, you got the Cinderella story. You have a guy in Felipe Lins who's squaring off against Cuddly Bear in the finals, who had one chance to make it into the playoffs, took advantage of that chance, and now he's in the finals. And then kind of on the flip side of that, in the featherweight bracket, you had the 1 and the 2 seed advance all the way in a fashion, at least for Lance Palmer, that we kind of predicted if he was going to get through, that's how he was going to have to do it. And then Steven Siler, you can never predict how he's going to get the job done.
No, he's just going to get it done.
So it was a phenomenal night. What was the biggest surprise for you, if there were any big surprises in New Orleans?
The biggest surprise for me was the Cuddly Bear finishing his semifinal match by a stunning walk-off knockout. That was beautiful.
So I've been around the fight game for a long time. Not as long as you have, but we've both been around
He keeps trying to tell you guys I'm older than him, by the way.
Well, I'm not proud of that because you look better than me, even though you're a few years older than me.
I'm so old.
I've been around the fight game for a long time. I've fought in a lot of fights. I've watched a lot of fights. I've cornered a lot of fights. I've announced several fights. And that was a top 5 moment. In every organization I've ever been around, that was a top 5 moment for me because of the way the crowd reacted.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest pop we've gotten from the crowd at the PFL, simply because of the way the fight was playing out. And right at that moment, he looked to be in trouble. He wasn't necessarily in the trouble that he looked like he was in, but he was on the back pedal.
He was retreating.
And then he just planted his feet and night.
And that was it. It was the sound of the punch landing, followed immediately by the sound of Nicholson's head hitting the mat, followed immediately by the sound of thousands of people roaring in amazement, shock, surprise. And I looked around. I was cage side. I stood up because no one stayed in their seat. I looked around. Nobody in the county was sitting in their seat. Everyone was on their feet.
Hold on. We were in New Orleans. They were in parishes.
Oh, nobody in the whole parish. Thank you.
It felt like a walk-off home run, like a baseball game. When you're just like, whoa. Because usually like a knockout happens earlier in the night.
Right.
But when the night ends on a knockout like that, it's like a somber feeling in the room. Everyone walks out in this weird, wow.
Yeah.
What does happen?
It was unbelievable. It was a great moment. Take away, all of the trappings and the dressing that goes along with it. Just that knockout was enough to sell the whole night, but it was the number 8 seed. It was a guy who, quote unquote, not supposed to be there in the finals moving on.
It was a guy who was sitting on his couch hoping for an opportunity to get into the tournament.
That's right. At PFL 7, when it was kind of the extras card, right? When people who were on medical suspensions had to get through. So every weight class still had a spot or two to be determined at PFL 7. And Josh Copeland was watching that card in his living room, effectively hoping that somebody would lose in the right fashion, or nobody would win, I guess, in the correct fashion. He needed Kyle Alencar to go to a decision for no one to get a finish, and that fight started hot and then kind of slowed down, so it looked like he was going to be out, and then he ended up in, and the opportunity was all that he needed. And that's what's so fantastic about this sport, the PFL format, everything.
You can't write this stuff, man. You can't. I tried.
You know what? I don't want to talk about it without Josh Copeland being involved anymore. All right? Kind enough to take some time and join us on the podcast. The Cuddly Bear himself, Josh Copeland. Josh, how are you, sir?
Man, I am extreme. Yeah, I'm smiling ear to ear right now just listening to you guys. I'll say that.
So take away the opportunity to win $1 million. Take away the tense feeling of maybe not being able to make it into the playoffs. And if you can, just compartmentalize the punch landing on Alex Nicholson and the finish. Where does that stand for you in the great moments of your MMA career?
Man, so the only other one I could compare it to was Jan Jorgensen when I beat him, and he was number 1 ranked guy from Utah. I was number 1 in Colorado, and already heard whoever wins that was getting the call up to the UFC. And man, that was a huge moment. And yeah, I've had 2 moments like that, and can't tell you how, wow, just blown away. And I'm still in shock, to be honest.
Yves, we're going to have to edit that part of the show out because Jan Jorgensen's one of my best friends in the whole world. That fight, as much as I love the Cuddly Bear, that fight that he's referencing, that one hurt me deep in my soul.
I saw it. When he said the name, I saw this look on your face like, ugh.
Jan's like my brother. But you know what? It was a great moment, so maybe we'll leave it in.
Josh, man, that was a walk-off knockout. And when you landed the right hand, you started to follow up, but you recognized that the fight was over. At that moment, that's when it all settles in. That's when it sinks in. What sunk in for you, that the fight was over or that you're moving on to the finals and you get that shot at $1 million?
No, I'd say the first one, that the fight was over. That's I will say I've never heard someone, I don't know, gurgling like that. And when I went to go, I mean, anyone who knows me knows I'm in there for straight competition. I'm not there to hurt anyone. And that was kind of startling hearing someone trying to breathe like that. So, but yeah, just to know that it was over, know that man, it couldn't have been finished at a better time, especially with my eye the way it was too. So I was very, very thankful.
And when it settled in, after that, when it settled in that you're in the finals now, you were the 8th seed and you were moving on to the finals, what was your thought process then?
Man, to be honest, man, I honestly, I don't know. Yeah, I'm the 8th seed, but I honestly didn't think I was the 8th seed. You know, I believe I can hang with any of those guys, and man, just to have the opportunity to, like you guys were saying, from my couch to be able to go out there and actually be more aggressive, just show what I can do. You know, that's, I don't know. I don't want to go out being a boring fighter. So I'd rather get knocked out or knock them out. And yeah, I was happy it turned out in my favor.
You proved that you can hang, man. You proved it.
Josh, I'm asking you this I'm asking you this out of curiosity, but also kind of as a little bit of advice maybe. I've got a similar situation, hopefully, coming up in just a few days here where got to win a fight and then turn around and 45 minutes, an hour later, get back in and fight. The gap in between your quarterfinal victory where you took out the 1 seed Francimar Barroso and that moment at the end where you walked out to take on Alex Nicholson for a spot in the finals. What was that gap like as you were backstage preparing?
So I'll say the only concern that I had was my right hand. I went to the back, and every time I moved my wrist, which of course I told the doctors in between fights I was good to go, nothing hurt, you know. But in the back, when I got back there with my coaches, I'm like, man, I really hope I didn't break my hand, just because anytime I would move my wrist, I'd feel, you know, right where the boxer's fracture is on the pinky area. Mm-hmm. And I had Ryan Schultz in my corner, and he's done an 8-man tournament in one night before. He had 3 fights, and he even fought and beat Roger Huerta in the finale there. And Ryan just told me, Josh, I promise you, when we get back out there, the adrenaline will take over. You won't feel anything. And sure enough, I didn't. And I was curious with having the shortest turnaround too. Number one thing that I wanted to do was just get some fluids in me. So guys were asking me for to do an interview, and I told him, hey, follow me. Let's go to the room. Let me slam the water, and then I'll chat with you. Just you guys know with fighting, there's nothing worse than having something in your gut, and it's time to go out there and perform. And so yeah, I wanted that to digest what it could, and yeah, it worked out perfect.
Things have been working out for you for both of those fights, and my perception is some things about you have changed, Josh. You look like a different fighter in the playoffs than you did in the regular season. What have you done that's made that difference? Because you look lighter on your feet. You're more calculated. You're not just jumping in there and starting wars. You're picking your battles. Where does this come from?
Yeah, so I would say number one thing, I went back and the Sean Jordan fight, I was when I went back and watched it, I was almost embarrassed with how straight my legs were. And I wound up getting back with my old kickboxing coach, Brian Youngs, and he just kept telling me, he's like, Josh, you have to bend your legs. You have to bend your legs. And man, we've just been focusing on just trying to get back to the basics, you know. And I've always prided myself in the fact that I understand range, I understand timing, and I'll use that range and timing to throw a big one, but then I'll throw that big one, run out of there, turn around and try to set up the next one. Well, man, so many times the one big one, or even the one or two big ones, that's not what knocks the guy out. I need that second, third, fourth beat in there to put someone away. And that's, I still saw myself throw some big ones and turn a few times, but that's definitely something I'm going to keep trying to work on. And, man, we're performers, just like you guys. And it's like I said, I'd so much rather go out, knowing that I was throwing, knowing that it was entertaining, versus go out just being embarrassed because I look like I don't know what I'm doing in there.
Well, you definitely looked like you knew you were doing in that finals. Did you know how bad of a cut you had on your head after you knocked out Alex Nicholson? Because that was one of the biggest cuts we've probably seen in all the PFL. Did you know how bad it was when you got your hand raised?
I could tell by the cut man, just the way that he was saying, and I mean, I instantly felt the trickle, the blood going, and yeah, that was, I don't know. And to be honest, that's how I saw myself knocking out Alex anyways. I feel like he wins fights because he is aggressive. And I feel like he wins fights because he throws things that he shouldn't throw, and it surprises a lot of people, from the jumping knees and spinning stuff and back fists. And I mean, tried to throw a spinning hill kick on me, and a lot of that stuff, I'm just like, to me, I was a little embarrassed I got caught with that spinning back fist. But besides that, man, I was going to stalk him down and beat him down anyways.
That spinning back fist that hit you, was it an elbow or forearm? Because, I mean, the glove is not going to cut that deep.
No. So to be honest with you, I don't know if it was the knee when we were backing off the cage. I don't know if it was that knee or if it was that spinning back fist. I don't recall getting hit with the elbow at all. But it was one of those that's man, yeah, that split me open. Had to get 13 stitches, 3 on the inside, 10 on the out. And, the doctor said that I was lucky. Everything split perfect, that it'll wind up healing back perfectly. So.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Obviously you've got the most important fight of your life coming up, right? And now with in your matchup with Felipe Lins, you have a common opponent in Alex Nicholson here in the PFL. In fact, I wondered when I saw the way that your fight unfolded if you had learned from watching Lins and Nicholson fight, because in that one, Nicholson cracked Lins and maybe got a little bit overzealous chasing for the finish and ended up walking into something which I think if you ask Alex Nicholson, he'll tell you is the exact thing that happened in your semifinal bout. So did you learn anything from watching those two guys fighting one another?
Man, for sure. I always think that I think I'm a smart fighter anyways. And in the way that I don't know. I just laugh when I watch people get over aggressive and they literally run in with their chin straight up in the air. You know, they don't try to set up. They don't try to time anything. They go for the kill and just chin up in the air. So I've seen the knockout coming with me and Nicholson the whole time. And man, I tell you, Felipe, he's very impressive to me. He's got good striking. He's got good jiu-jitsu. You know, he looks like he comes in shape, and man, he's definitely going to be a great test for me come New Year's Eve.
So what do you do now? You're about almost 3 months away from $1 million fight. Do you get right back into training camp? Do you take some time off, heal up? I heard you're with a nutritionist now.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm actually sitting in the car with my mom right now. She just drove me to Springfield, Missouri. I came to Arkansas to come see my parents yesterday, and I'm going to fly back to Denver today, and then I'm heading out to LA tomorrow to go do some PR stuff with you guys. And so it's a quick turnaround, but man, one thing about me is I'm always training, and you know, I'll be getting some runs in and some shadow boxing, waiting for this eye to finish healing, and you know, I'll definitely pick up the intensity come mid-November. But man, you guys know to keep up with this sport, you've always got to be learning. And man, I know I got Curtis Blades. He's got his fight coming up in November, and I told him that I'd be there for him. You know, and Alistair Overeem's already texted me, hey, when you coming back? Let's get back to drilling and this and that. And that's one thing that cracks me up is Alistair told me, Josh, you keep catching me with an overhand. Every time he's like, let's get together and drill. And it's cool having a guy like that, someone that I've looked up to for such a long time, actually wanted to train with me and sending me text messages. It's very, very humbling.
Well, we're glad to hear that you got to spend a little bit of time with family. And one of the things about success, and especially having a night like the night you had in New Orleans, is like everybody wants to claim you. Everybody wants to be close to the cuddly bear. Everyone wants to be Josh's best friend. And so much so that there was confusion in the crowd. There was a gentleman there who apparently is close to you who was like, yeah, I'm his dad. Sure, whatever. Like he even made camera time on the PFL broadcast. Explain this situation to me, Cuddly Bear.
Yeah, so as far as I understood that's my buddy Ray.
Okay.
Ray Perry, and if even if you guys look at my Cuddly Bear my Cuddly Bear logo on the belt, it actually has RP on the belt, and RP of course for Ray Perry. And Ray is man, Ray he was one of the best men at my wedding. He's from day one, God's really blessed him financially. And from day one, the guy has been there every step of the way, helping me any way and every way that he can, never misses a fight, this and that. So he's, as far as I understood, he went down there freaking out, and I guess he told the commissioner or something that he was my dad, and the commissioner even gave him his credentials so that he could get down there close by the cage, you know, because he was worried about me and all that. So, and he just he's like, I never thought it would go national on TV, this and that. He's like, please tell your father I apologize. I meant no disrespect, this and that. And yeah, when, I don't know. So that's when I was texting with James told me he kind of got in trouble over that. And man, I don't know. I never want anyone to get in trouble over me. And I don't know. And Ray's a great guy. He's a guy that'll do anything and everything for you. He's a giver, you know, and it's like, I kind of feel bad about the scenario and just don't want the PFL to get mad at me.
The PFL loves you. Don't worry.
The PFL is offering a formal apology through this podcast because it was our mistake for not vetting that out. But the most important thing there, I mean, I watched your fights. I was there cage side the whole night. That guy, Ray, obviously loves you and he was freaking out. He was so concerned during the Barroso fight. I mean, he's standing there cringing at every punch landed and all that stuff, and he was celebrating as much as anyone else, and probably more so when you won. So it was fun to see, whether you're blood relatives or not. It was fun to see somebody there who was so invested in your success.
For me, it's like I say, he might not be blood, but he is definitely closer than so many of my blood relatives. And that's I've always called him my brother, and he's definitely family for me. And I mean, he's sick, and I'm taking him Gatorades and whatever I can to help him feel better. Like I'd do anything for that man. So yeah, definitely love him like he is blood. So,
well, one of the things that a lot of people were saying, and I agree wholeheartedly, when it comes to the 8th seed, Josh Copeland making it into the finals and giving himself a chance to win $1 million could not have happened to a better, more deserving guy. PFL's excited to be part of the journey, obviously. So much looking forward to the fight on New Year's Eve. Good luck training, stay healthy, and we'll talk with you soon, all right?
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate yours, Josh. All the best, brother.
I'm glad to hear Cuddly Bear's coming down to L.A.
Yeah, that'll be a good trip. That'll be a good trip for him. Maybe I can get a cuddle.
I promise you can.
Heck yeah. I'd love that.
I'd love it too, Josh.
All right, man. See ya.
Take care, brother.
Awesome. Yes. See ya. Bye.
The Cuddly Bear himself, Josh Copeland, number 8 seed, heading into the finals.
The new number 1 seed in my mind. You beat the number 1 seed, you become the number 1 seed.
Is that how it works?
I don't know. Probably not.
It's like a title.
So, look, a lot of people probably didn't predict that. Francis Barroso looked like a killer coming through the regular season. Got a big submission win, got a big TKO win. We saw him be more aggressive in his striking in his regular season fights. He was not able to match the aggression of the Cuddly Bear in their quarterfinal bout. He gets through that one, and then I asked him about what he saw between Felipe Lins and Alex Nicholson, because Nicholson, we talked to him before the fight about this, about getting overzealous and running into things. And far be it from me to criticize fighters for not correcting their mistakes from fight to fight, because I've been doing the same damn things my whole career. But Alex Nicholson was actually mindful of the idea that if he did land something, he could not run into a big punch. And that was a danger for him in the semifinals, yet it still happened, Yves.
Yeah, he forgot it. I mean, he was mindful of it until he landed that back fist. And then he started running Josh down. That's the big thing about constantly running forward. You're going to either crowd yourself or possibly run into something. And the latter is what happened for Nicholson.
By the way, Nicholson's fine. There were people after the fight expressed a little bit of concern because he went out. He was starched. His head hit the mat, but he's fine. He woke up. He's moving on. He's expecting to get back to training and come back better. And he's had, win or lose, as exciting a run through PFL Season 1 as anyone else on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, you guys should not be concerned. I've been in the same position as Josh. I've been KO'd like that once. And look at me. I still talk good.
Well, debatable. All right, we got to address the other side of this final. Felipe Lins. He had one chance to get into the playoffs. He gets in. He had a walkover in his first fight, so we didn't really get to see him, right?
Right.
So he had one chance to actually prove himself as a fighter against Alex Nicholson. He wins. He locks down a 3 seed, and he gets through a quarterfinal bout that you could not ask for an easier scenario if you're Felipe Lins than the way that thing unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, well, emotionally, I don't know how easy it was.
Yeah. Because
it is his teammate, training partner, 15 years. They still train together. They're both at American Top Team, working together every single day. So emotionally, that had to be heavy for him. But the fight itself, it seemed to me that Alan Carr did not want to engage in a battle that could potentially hurt his friend, because everything he did was just half-hearted, lackadaisical. I mean, that guillotine that finished the bout, he's up against the fence. All you have to do is tripod up, and that pressure is relieved. You have the fence as a backboard, and there's no way that he can arch into that, but he just stayed on his knees and allowed it to happen.
He wasn't even on his knees, Eve. He stayed on his belly.
That's right. He was sprawled in a guillotine.
Dead man legs just out behind him.
There's not a lot of guys. I've been through virtually every situation that you can go through in mixed martial arts. That is one situation I've never been in. I've never been in a situation where I'm fighting a friend who's been a close personal friend for over 15 years. That's got to be hard to deal with. I mean, we train with our friends every single day, the closest people to us. But those situations are controlled and they're different. And when somebody gets hurt, you back off. This is a situation where somebody's hurt. You're supposed to pour it on.
Right. And I'll say this, there are situations in training, and I don't know if it's like this for you, but when you're training with your close friends and things like that, there's guys at my gym that I know if I get into a certain situation with them, like they're better in that situation than I am, right? Like there are guys at the gym where I'm like, oh, if he got on my back, this is going to be a long round. Or there are guys at the gym that if we're light sparring, I know they're a lot faster than me, and if it's more of like a point situation, it's going to be a long day for me. So that may have come into play where Kyle Alencar shoots a takedown, finds himself wrapped up in a guillotine and says, oh my gosh, I've been here with Felipe Lins before. I know that this is a situation he gets over on me. And he decided to check out early, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of mental stuff that plays into that fight.
All right, so Long Beach, California, this weekend.
Yeah, that's happening.
That's happening. You are fighting, as well as our next guest, the number 5 seed in the lightweight division, Robert Watley. Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Robert Watley.
Robert, what's up, man?
Oh, not much, man. Just enjoying hearing y'all go. Y'all are awesome. I need to figure out what this podcast is, man. Y'all are hilarious.
This is the PFL Weekly. What do you mean you need to figure it out? You are one of the contributing. We're going to make you a contributing editor.
He's a guest on it now. I mean, you don't have to figure it out anymore. So we were just talking with the Cuddly Bear, Josh Copeland, who came out as an 8 seed and now finds himself with a place in the final. You and I are both in a situation this weekend where we do not go in to the quarterfinal, semifinal bouts as favorites. We don't go in as people that the MMA world is looking at. Oh yeah, he's probably going to end up in the final. Is that does it mean anything at all? Is it an advantage? Is it a disadvantage? Knowing that there are some guys who are favorites here, there are some guys who people expect to lose, and then there's some of us who are just kind of somewhere in the middle.
I think I don't really see it as I don't really see too many negatives from being a lower seed. I mean, obviously, you still have to get in there and you still have to fight regardless of what your seed is. Your seed doesn't save you. And just by looking at Josh, I mean, honestly, I think a huge part of it was people were thinking the guy didn't even score any points in the regular season. Like I'm about to roll, I'm about to roll to these semis. And I mean, he went in there and Barroso looked terrified of him. And you could tell Nicholson underestimated him. And, I mean, like y'all were saying, my man was sleeping.
Yeah, he went out. It was lights out for him. You had a tough fight in the regular season against Will Brooks. And that was huge because for me, I'm looking at that fight as a guy with a lot of experience, just taking advantage of those experiences. But you have a lot of skill and a lot of talent, and you just weren't able to capitalize on those things because of Will's experience. What did you take from that fight, and where do you see yourself sitting in comparison to where you were then now?
Well, honestly, one of my biggest takeaways from that, while the experience from that fight, I remember really, I saw you after the fight. I was kind of beating myself up, and I was really replaying the fight in my head and thinking about what I could have done better. And the coolest thing, was you're a legend of the sport. I've been watching you since UFC 49 and getting to see you ninja kick Josh Thompson in the head. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just saw a real life ninja. but hearing you say, you know what, kid, you belong here. You're not, this isn't by luck or some crazy fortune. You know, you earned your way here. There's a few things that you need to do. You got to veteran up. And Will really, he out-veteraned me. He did the little things that he needed to do. And that, honestly, that really made me go back to the wrestling drawing board and made me shore up my wrestling defense as well as offense. And after watching the playoffs last week, it looked like the people who were the most successful and who made it to the finals, or who will be in the finals, with the least damage, are the guys who really leaned on their wrestling. So I think that fight with Will taught me a lot, as somebody who's so new in the sport, about what it really means to be a veteran and to do the veteran things. So I think I'm in a great position. I'm facing another grappler, another guy who has great wrestling ability, in Chris Wade. So just coming off that very, very grapple heavy fight, I think I'm sitting in a very good spot. And so I just have to really take advantage of, the things that I do really well is my movement and my athleticism, and then try to surprise people in that wrestling aspect.
Yeah. So last time we saw Chris Wade fight, he came out like a bat out of hell, flying across the ring with a jumping kick. Is that on your mind at all? Are you going to be a little wary when that fight starts?
Yeah, my wife's been watching this fight, and she's like, "Watch out for it! He's gonna come out in flying ninja star you." So I like to touch hands at the beginning of the bout. If he does not want to touch hands, then I'm going to go ahead and assume that I'm probably going to be getting like a flying cup kick from hell.
Well, interestingly enough, he said before the season even started that he needed to be more aggressive and more exciting as a fighter. He had, like, Chris Wade had a resolution to be more exciting for fans.
More aggressive.
And we've seen mixed success with that. Knowing that about him, do you think it gives you a better sense of what kind of fighter you're going to be facing?
Yes, I mean, somewhat. I think I could look at his two previous fights and kind of get a picture off of that, but it is also the playoffs, and we do also have to take into account that if we win the first one, we'll be fighting a second bout that night. And looking at so Andre Harrison and Lance Palmer. Andre Harrison, I think he came out there, and I think he really wanted to prove to people he was 17 or 18-0, maybe 19-0 going to those fights, and he had about 15 or 16 decisions. And I think he let people get into his head about, you're not an exciting fighter, or you can't finish fights. And he went in there, and not to say anything against Alexandre Bezeha, but he went in and he banged with that guy when he possibly could have made that fight a lot easier for himself. And then you got a guy like a Lance Palmer, who at the end of it was like, look, y'all boo me, y'all say what you want about my performance. How many of y'all are fighting for $1 million on, December 31st? So while I do have to take into account Chris Wade's past and the past things that he's done in the cage, I think it would be I have to be a little more forward thinking and understand that a fight's a fight's a fight. I very rarely go in there with a game plan. I like to assess as I go. With a 2-round fight, I can't go in there and take my time like I did. I mean, I didn't wake up till the second or third round against Will, so I definitely can't do that. But I think he's definitely going to come out, and especially with the first round being scored much more. The first round is basically the tiebreaker. So I think it behooves me to get out there and get going early, and then just try to from the Natan Schultz fight, we see that Chris doesn't do so well when he is the one being pressured. So it's going to be all about who controls the distance and the range with this one, I believe.
So looking at your record right here on online, so you lost your first fight of your career, and then you went on to win 11 fights in a row, and now you lost to Will Brooks. Do you find that this loss to Will Brooks is a little bit of a maybe a quote-unquote wake-up call, or kind of a blessing in disguise that you won all these fights in a row and you got yourself a loss right before the playoffs? Is that a little bit of fire underneath you now that you took a loss before the playoffs, kind of reawake your mind, so to say?
For sure, and also it's a weight off my back, man. It's when you have the longest running win streak. I think it was me and Islam Mamedov, possibly, maybe not even him. When you have 11 fights in a row, man, that's a weight in itself to have to try and continue that streak. And and be able to get that loss and to take it to a guy who's top, 20 in the world right now, and realize that, I was a few veteran mistakes or veteran moves away from possibly getting my hand raised in that fight. I think it only really adds fuel to the fire, and also taking that L before we get into the playoffs. I think it definitely helps people underestimate me a little bit. They're probably looking over me. I know people are thinking, okay, beat Watley, we grab his legs and lay on him for 15 minutes, and we're gonna get the W and move on. So I think it definitely lit a fire in my under my butt, and nobody likes. I always remember telling myself, I was like, I will never be a part of somebody laying on me for 15 minutes. That'll never happen to me, and that was a very humbling experience and kind of a wake-up call that if you're not wary, if you're not preparing accordingly for the people that you're stepping in there with, you can get got. And I got. And I don't want that to happen again, especially might be doing this in front of millions of people. So it'd be kind of embarrassing. People like, oh, it was hilarious. Chris Wade's corner. They're the hilarious New Yorker, New Jersey guys. So I came over after the fight, and they were sitting right behind my folks. And they were like, hey, man, you might want to go get a pregnancy test for your legs. He was laying on you for 15 minutes. You might want to go ahead and get your legs checked out. So they had me dying over there cracking up. But I know how to wrestle. I'm a mixed martial artist. I'm not a striker or a boxer or a wrestler. We all are supposed to be mixed martial artists. And that's definitely a part of my game. And I'm looking forward to be able to show people that.
And obviously how we started off the conversation, you did watch PFL 8, so you are aware of how important that first round of your first fight is to win that first round, because we had two guys in Josh Copeland and Steven Seiler have draws and move on in the tournament, so you're aware of how important that first round really is going to be.
It's funny watching Steven Seiler in his first 2-round fight. I mean, he obviously won the first round. And I think at some point in the second round, my man came out, grabbed somebody, and pulled guard. And I just started dying laughing. And I was like, I mean, look, you got to play the game. And that's the game. And you just got to be smart. Usually the guys who you see who are fighting in the finales of tournaments, it's not the biggest guy. It's not the strongest guy. It's not the guy who's, got the most knockouts on his record. It's people who can go in there and use their brain efficiently and get themselves through while taking the least amount of damage.
That's what I'm worried about, Watley, honestly. Like, you bringing that up, it feels like a personal attack on me, and I don't appreciate it, okay?
Well, dude, look, you're way more exciting than I am, and you also are in there with guys who is like, look, man, y'all could sneeze on each other, and y'all are getting, knees are buckling, so it's a little more dangerous for you than it is for me. But no, brother, no shots at all. I appreciate your commentary. I appreciate watching your fights. I've been watching you since you've been around the block, and you're a veteran, man. And I wish the best of you and your fights coming up, man.
Thanks. It's going to be a fun night.
Everybody likes to watch a demolition derby every once in a while, right? So that's when Sean's fighting, that's what I get ready for. But when you're fighting, Robert, I'm looking forward to watching a movie like The Usual Suspects or something. So I appreciate your fight IQ.
Look, I'm looking for a nickname, so I don't mind. Robert, The Usual Suspects Watley.
That's actually pretty good.
That's not bad at all.
Oh,
okay,
man.
Okay, I'm going to have to give you some credit for that, Yves. We'll see how this tournament turns out. I might have to cut you a check.
There you go. You win that $1 million. I just want my 10%.
Dang, 10%'s a hefty fee. That's
Really going for it.
That's a big old fee. Well, Robert, good luck this weekend. Obviously, we'll see you around the hotel and stuff, so thanks for joining us.
We'll see you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Robert Watley is really an interesting guy. I make jokes about the stylistic differences, but one of the most fascinating things about him we saw was a PFL 2 when he came out to, guys will walk the cage, they'll see how the canvas feels on their feet. Robert Watley spent, I want to say, like 40 minutes in there feeling out all the seams, the soft spots, the hard spots, leaning up against the cage. Like, he studies things. He's a very detail-oriented fighter.
Yeah, that's a good benefit when you step in there. I mean, you know where you are in the cage, you know what it all feels like, but I believe going in there early is just to get used to that. I used to like to do that. That was like the best feeling. The first time I did that was over in Pride. They bring everybody out before everything starts. They'll bring the red corner out and then the blue corner out. And then I started doing that when I came back. And that kind of puts you in the mode of this is for me anyway. This is where you're going to be tonight. This is where you're going to do your work, and just get comfortable in this environment, because when you come back, it's not the same feeling. Also, when you go in there the first time and your feet hit the canvas, it's not the same. When your feet touch the canvas and it's go time, I mean, it's a different energy. You feel that energy coming up out of that canvas into your feet, and you're ready to perform. But just going in there before that, for me anyway, that was kind of a what is it? Preheating the oven.
Let's talk about the upcoming weekend. PFL 9 coming up.
You look a little nervous.
What do you mean?
I thought you were avoiding it for a second. All right, I guess that's the show.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. No, look, this is a big night for all of us. I obviously have a lot on the line coming up. I got a bout with Dan Spahn to start things off. 3 versus 6. Dan Spahn, successful in his first 2 bouts. He finished my last opponent, Bozagit Atayev, who beat me pretty soundly, so that gives you a lot to think about, right? And then his second fight was one of the more unfortunate scenarios we've seen in the PFL cage, where he took on a late replacement, an injury replacement, and got kicked in the nuts 3 times.
Yeah, are you going to target those?
I will not be doing that. I mean, the open stance, southpaw versus orthodox, that lends itself to some of that a little bit, but I've been listening to Boss Rutan on the broadcast. He always says, if you don't point your toes down correctly on those kicks, you're going to end up, it's going to drift up, you're going to hit him in the junk. I've been practicing.
But you get one freebie, right? You could always kick the guy once in the junk before the ref says.
I'm not exploiting loopholes. Okay, I'm not Conor McGregor right now.
All right, I'm just saying. I'm just throwing you a
bone, Sean.
Yeah.
So you have Dan Spahn.
Yeah.
What's your game plan, Sean?
I'm gonna try and punch him in the face, make him go to sleep.
Okay, that's complex. That's
every time Yves talks about my fights, I feel simultaneously attacked and ridiculed. Like it's my big brother just being like, you just suck at this.
He did do that to you. He told you to move your head. He's like, you got to move your head.
Look, he's right. Okay,
Yves doesn't hold his punches back at all.
Nor should he. Like everybody knows that's one of the interesting things about the PFL format is we get to see a little bit of each other beforehand, right? And it's not like you watch a guy fight and then maybe 2 years later you're matching up with him. It's you watch a guy fight and then 6-8 weeks later you're going to step in, and that means things probably haven't changed all that much. So if I'm Dan Spahn in his camp, I'm saying, look, this guy does not move his head. There's opportunities for you here. If I'm in my camp, which I am, you go back after a fight like the disaster I had against Bozagit, and you try and shore up those weaknesses. You try and change your approach a little bit. So I think that we've filled in some of the holes. The things that we've emphasized in this camp have been the things that I believe we needed to emphasize. The format lends itself to aggression in the first round, but that's not just blind bite down on your mouthpiece and hope that you land a big punch aggression. You still got to fight smart. So I'm confident that we've made the correct adjustments. We'll find out on Saturday night. Right?
Did you bring anybody in specifically to help you with this, or are you still with Jeremy and you just trained with the same guys again?
I'm still with Jeremy. We brought in a couple other guys that the physical profile for Dan Spahn, people don't necessarily talk about. He's a really tall, athletic southpaw. Those guys are hard to find, right? So we found some guys that can help with that and give a look on that. So you use the tools that you have at your disposal, and if you don't have the right ones in the toolbox, you go to Home Depot. Right. So we found a little bit of help in that regard, and I'm confident going into this matchup. He's a really, really tough guy. I think he's one of the more underrated guys. Yep. People didn't expect a lot out of Dan Spahn coming into this, because if you look at his career arc, he had kind of a successful run up to almost getting into the UFC, right? He had like the little
Contenders.
The Contender. No, it was the
he did the
Tough. He was on Tough.
He was on both then.
Okay, so
he fought on the finale on Tough. He lost to Patrick Walsh, and then he also did the Dana White Tuesday Contender Series.
And then a lot of his stuff was regional, and then he got a Contender Series spot. And I think where some of these other guys in this weight class came from, people were like, "Oh yeah, I mean, look at Bozagit, for example. You look at Bozagit's record, and it's like, oh, this guy when he faced Dan Spahn, he had one career loss, and it was to Alistair Overeem.
Yeah."
right? So you look at his resume versus Dan Spahn's resume, and you take Bozagit a little bit more seriously. Well, Dan Spahn went out and beat him, so now you got to take Dan Spahn as seriously as anyone else. He's the 3 seed for a reason. I think he's one of the more underrated guys in the weight class, and it's going to be a tough one.
Squid, can we take a look at the bracket?
Sure. So here we got the bracket. We got number 1 seed Vinny Magalhaes taking on number 8 Raheem Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the 4 and 5 seed Bozagit Atayev against Emiliano Sordi. Then we move down to your match. Number 3 seed against 6 seed Dan Spahn against Sean O'Connell. And then number 2 seed Maxim Grishin taking on Smelinho Rama. So, Sean, you were at the New Orleans fights, obviously. You were calling some of the fights. Mm-hmm. Do you find that to be an advantage, being there and kind of seeing the 2-fight matchup, how guys were doing the first round, first round fight plus first round of that fight, the kind of the way they fought?
Yeah, I thought I was really excited about going to New Orleans for that reason, because we all have an idea of what the playoff format's going to look like in our heads, but some of us who haven't been around for tournaments haven't actually had to go through it. And I wanted to be, not in the cage, but next to the cage and kind of watch how it was unfolding and the approach that some guys and their coaches and their corners had. And I think it was a good learning experience. Nothing is going to be as useful as actually going through it myself. Right. But you saw guys, I think, go in acknowledging that, hey, this first round is as important as any round I've ever fought in my career. And they fought like that. And then other guys went in and said, oh, I'm the number 1 seed and I'm going to be able to get by the Cuddly Bear.
Francis Barbarossa came in not realizing that's $1 million, already thinking about the second fight, it looked like.
I mean, Kelvin Tiller, who just blew us all out of the water with his performances in the regular season, came in against Jared Rosholt, the 2 seed versus the 7 seed. People are like, oh, yeah, we've already seen this movie. And I don't know if Kelvin Tiller was overconfident going into that, but there wasn't the same kind of urgency maybe that I would have expected. And for Rosholt, there was,
Yeah.
He immediately closed distance, shot with a head inside single, which is the mistake he had made in their regular season bout. He moved his head to the inside. He dumped him on the ground. He got the job done. It was fun to see, I guess, and in a lot of cases, it was the lower seeded guy. And it was the guy who had more to prove go in there and really get after things in the first round and even in both rounds of that first fight. So it was good. It was an effective exercise for me to be there. Again, you got to fight it out. But I'm done talking about myself and my fight. I mean, I know people are probably interested in it, but
let's talk about the 2 top seeds of your weight class. Two monsters. Let's pretend like you're not fighting in this tournament, and then you're just commentating.
Look, Vinny Magalhaes is the number 1 seed. Hugely impressive victory in the first round against, his first regular season bout against Jamie Abdallah
and Brendan Halsey.
And then the Halsey fight probably even more impressive and exciting because Halsey is a pretty darn good wrestler, and Vinny was just what do you say about Vinny Magalhaes all the time? Don't get on the ground with him. Don't get on the ground with him. Well, Vinny threw a head kick up over the top of Halsey's head, clipped him on the back of his dome, and then pounded him out.
Yeah, the one that you don't see, that's the one that's going to put you out. And that one, I mean, you got no eyes on the back of your head, right? But Vinny came out and he did exactly what he needed to do. When you look at the fight with Jamie Abdallah, I mean, Abdallah's a striker. Mm-hmm. You know where that's going to go. He doesn't have the wrestling background and can really compete with Vinny to take him down and control him. And then when he did get to the ground, he made some very, very critical mistakes against a guy like Vinny Magalhaes that you shouldn't make. But the Brendan Halsey fight, like you said, that was huge, because for Brendan Halsey to win that fight, he would have to use his wrestling offensively and control Vinny, and then defensively keep the fight standing and strike with Vinny. But the striking department, Vinny's really improved there. So much so since his time in the UFC. And I believe that makes him the biggest threat at light heavyweight right now.
Well, the narrative around Vinny Magalhaes, since he burst onto the MMA scene with Tough Season 8, was, oh, okay, this guy, not that effective of an offensive striker, but also his striking defense isn't very good. So you just got to hit him and you can put him away. And his record has spoken to that exact narrative. Well, what we've seen from Vinny Magalhaes in PFL is the nightmare that a lot of light heavyweights who paid attention to him had. Vinny Magalhaes learning how to take a punch, learning how to avoid a punch, and still having the crazy jiu-jitsu skills that he has. Oh, and by the way, now all of that athleticism and strength that he's got is translating into effective striking as well. Like, this is the best Vinny we've seen, and a world-class grappler who's even a serviceable striker
is dangerous.
That's very dangerous.
And Vinny his striking has hit another level.
Yeah.
He's more than serviceable now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take that guy seriously. It's not the way that it used to be with Vinny's MMA career, and I'm not saying those things to be insulting to him. He knows exactly where he came from. His record in mixed martial arts is nowhere near indicative of what his potential was.
No, and most of his losses are, if you look back at his record, you have David Branch, he lost to Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, Rafael Davis. These are all high-level wrestlers. That's the only thing that can really beat Magalhaes is kind of a wrestler that stays away from his jiu-jitsu, but he seemed to have evolved quite a bit since the David Branch fight.
And, his opponent, we've seen a 1/8 seed upset already in PFL. His opponent, Rakeem Cleveland, came in pretty unknown quantity, right? In his first regular season bout, took on a guy who was a lot of people's favorite, youngest guy in the tournament, one of the Dagestani killers that everyone was like, oh, watch out for this dude. And he broke his jaw.
Yeah.
Put him out. Not just out of the fight, but put him out of season 1 altogether. So Rakeem Cleveland is no joke. And he's obviously going to be looking to prove something against Vinny Magalhaes, who is the deserving number 1 seed at light heavyweight.
And the favorite in that fight, deservedly so. But that's the thing about someone who has something to prove. So Rakeem Cleveland coming in as the 8th seed against the guy that everybody's looking at to win the entire tournament, or a lot of people are looking at Vinny as the favorite in the tournament. Rakeem Cleveland has something to prove. So has he done the work that he's going to need to do to be able to capitalize on this opportunity? And we get to find out in just like 4 days.
And then on the other half of the top side of the bracket, you've got Emiliano Sordi, who came in with 1 shot, right, to make the playoffs. And Bozagit Atayev, who the spinning liver kick from hell put me out after, beating me up for the whole first round. So obviously,
move your head, Sean.
Obviously, Bozagit, tale of 2 performances for him. He gassed out a little bit against Dan Spahn, and he paid for it. Against me, he moved quick. He put hands on me, and
you paid for it.
And I paid for it, and then he finished things off with that kick. Emiliano Sordi came in, like I said, 1 shot to make it into the playoffs, and we saw 16 seconds worth of his handiwork, 2 uppercuts land, and that's it.
We did, but I took something from that fight. I mean, it was only 16 seconds, but I took from that fight that he reads well. Mm-hmm. He threw that uppercut. He saw it land. He recognized that this shot is going to land for me. And what did he do? Set it up to land it again. And the second time he did it, when he set it up, it was the finishing move. So that tells me that he has an IQ to where he can make the adjustment in the fight. If he finds that opening, he can exploit that. So is he going to be able to do that against a guy like Bozagit?
Well, I did a little homework on Emiliano Sordi because we only saw those 16 seconds. And I happened to train with a guy who spent some time down in South America with him and said, look, he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Like, yeah, he's got power, but he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. So people are going to be sleeping on him because they don't know anything about him. He can beat you anywhere. So one of these unknown commodities, even heading in to the PFL playoffs, he goes in as what? Is he the 4 seed?
Who?
Sordi? The 4 seed or the 5 seed?
Sordi is...
Got to be the 4 seed because he finished in 16 seconds.
Emiliano Sordi is the 5 seed.
Okay.
Bozagit is the 4 seed.
All right. Well, I don't know how it works, apparently.
You're so confident.
Sorry.
It's got to be the...
He's definitely the 4 seed. Nope, you're wrong. All
but
right,
real quick on the lightweight division.
Yeah.
This is my old division. This is a division that I have a lot of love for. And it's very hard. Once we get off of Nathan Schultz, which he's been dominant. He's looked great, and he should definitely be in the... I mean, he's earned the number 1 spot, and I believe he should be a lot of people's favorite going into the tournament. But that division is stacked, man. There are some guys in there that are very good at taking away the strengths that Schultz has. I look on the other side of that at Will Brooks and Rashid Magomedov, and those 2 guys, they train with each other. And they also train in the same gym as Schultz, and they trained with him before. So those 3 guys being in that tournament together There's some questions that are going to be answered there.
Don't sleep on Johnny Case. Don't sleep on Johnny Case. He won 4 fights in a row in the UFC, so do not sleep on the guy that no one has even seen. I think he's got quite a big advantage having no one can. I guess you can watch some of his UFC fights, but you don't really know. You can't really like do a little bit of MMA math. You can't be like, oh, he did this against this guy. It's a little hard to do. He's coming in kind of blind.
But to what Sean said earlier about, seeing those fights from years ago versus seeing fights from recently where they've had less time to make those adjustments and make those changes. Yep. He is the unknown commodity, and that is definitely an advantage going into the tournament like this.
Yeah. Natan Schultz is one of the most fascinating guys on the whole roster for me because he came in, people were like, oh, yeah, Chris Wade, their first bout. Chris Wade, man, he's a great wrestler. If he puts Schultz on his back, there's going to be trouble here. And Natan Schultz just like underhook, foot sweep, trip you to the ground. He was tossing people around. Like there's a lot of really great wrestlers in this weight class. He's got a excellent wrestling, excellent takedown defense, but his judo comes into play in such a creative and effective way that not only is it fun to watch if you have any interest at all in the grappling arts, but to try and prepare for it, it's hard to find training partners who are going to try and get you to the ground the same way that Natan Schultz will try and get you to the ground.
Yeah, agreed. And he showed that his judo is on that level. I mean, taking out Chris Wade and then another not All-American, but a qualifier, national qualifier, and Jason High from Nebraska. That's a high-level wrestler in himself, and I've trained with that guy. I know how tough Jason High is, so to see Natan Schultz just kind of manhandle him.
Yeah. Woo! And there's some good storylines here. If you look at Schultz's record, his last loss is to Islam Mamedov on the other side of the bracket. He got armbarred in the second round, so could set up a nice little final. That could be a great final, all right? That could be a fantastic final.
Squid, walk us through the whole lightweight bracket.
All right, cool. So, lightweight bracket, our number 1 seed, Natan Schultz, taking on number 8 seed, Johnny Case. Next up, we got number 4 seed, Chris Wade, against number 5 seed, Robert Watley. The other side of the bracket, we have 3 seed, Islam Mamedov, against 6 seed, Thiago Tavares. And finishing it off is the number 2 seed, Will Brooks, taking on Rashid Magomedov.
Man.
Stacked.
That's a stacked card. And I've trained with quite a few. I mean, being a lightweight, training with some guys, I've trained with Wade, Will Brooks, Magomedov, Schultz. I can't remember the rest of the names off the top of my head right now, but because I've gotten hit in the head a lot. But that's a stacked division. I know those guys well, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm really excited about the Brooks-Magomedov fight and to see who comes out of that, because I believe whoever comes out of that has a very, very good shot of winning their second fight and getting into the finals.
I'm looking forward to the whole weekend. Obviously, this is going to be a fantastic display of not only mixed martial arts, but the new PFL format that if you missed out on PFL 8, it's fine. We're not mad at you. Just tune into PFL 9, lightweights and light heavyweights. You'll see some knockouts. You'll see some high-level technical grappling. And you'll see people winning 2 bouts in one night for a chance at $1 million at Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve.
Yep, and people at home, if you guys think you're this know-it-all and can pick who's going to win, join the PFL 2018 Bracket Challenge. Even though PFL 8 is in the past, you can still join into the Bracket Challenge, fill out your bracket, and have a chance to join us on New Year's Eve and come on out.
Win some prizes.
Exactly. Win some prizes, get some points, and it's just like the NCAA Bracket Challenge, but for fighting.
You know what's messed up? At PFL 8, we had paper brackets. Mm-hmm. They handed them out before the fights. And at our broadcast table, I just scratched in the names I thought was going to win.
All of them were wrong?
No, I had featherweight exactly right.
Wow.
And I picked the 2 biggest upsets of the night. And guess what? Did I keep that as evidence, as proof that I picked it? No, I did not. I left it at the table.
I wouldn't have believed you anyway. I'd have been like you wrote it in afterwards.
I know the guy doing the brackets.
Sitting right there watching it.
I bet, you know what? I bet Todd Harris stole it and put it in his pocket, and he's going to say, oh, yeah, I predicted all these things.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, Todd would definitely do that. Oh, Todd.
Yeah, I think I'm in ranked number 15 in the bracket challenge. I did some good picking, except for goddamn Josh Copeland screwed it all up for me. It's all right. I already have a free trip to New York, so I don't need to win this thing. It's nothing. I don't need to prove anything.
I always want to win.
I say same here.
We saw PFL 8 delivered, PFL 9 I'm confident is going to deliver at Long Beach as well, and cannot wait to be part of it. Not broadcasting before I fight this time, just going to go be a regular fighter.
Guys, and I believe if you did miss PFL 8, before we go live on NBCSN, you can see PFL 8 broadcast just before we go for PFL 9. So you can get yourself 5 hours of MMA, some good MMA fights too.
And if you're wondering about some of these regular season bouts we've been talking about, they're archived on the Facebook watch page for PFL. So you can go back, you can study film, you can decide who's going to win based on the performances you've already seen before you fill out your bracket challenge.
Take this bracket challenge seriously. And if you're in the Los Angeles or Long Beach area, muster together $10 and come get yourself tickets to the PFL. Watch some of the best fighters in the world for $10. Come on down. You can meet all three of us. You probably want to meet them too, but I'll be there. I'll hold your camera and take a photo of you guys together. It's fine. It's fine.
That's fine. Okay, guys. Well, that's us for this week. PFL Weekly. We had a good time. It was also amazing to have my man Sean. I was gonna give you a really bad nickname.
Don't do that.
I'll just go with Sean.
Don't do that.
O'Connell.
See what I'm talking about?
What was the nickname going to be?
There's something about
not moving his head.
A broken bobblehead or something.
Sean the broken head, broken bobblehead O'Connell.
I'm gonna
in studio, so that was awesome.
I'm going to go murder Yves Edwards in the parking lot.
He probably will too, but it's because I'm so old.
All right.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Later. Bye.